Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going beyond basic film criticism to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Nicole Finari, and with me today is...
Adam Perry.
And what movie are we overanalyzing this week?
Scream 6.
Plot summary goes, 4 survivors of the Ghostface murders leave Woodsboro behind for a fresh start in New York City. However, they soon find themselves in a fight for their lives when a new killer embarks on a bloody rampage. So, surprising maybe to longtime listeners of the podcast, I saw Scream 1, 2, and 3 in theaters. I am a longtime fan of the Scream, I guess, franchise, we'll call it now. So, what did you think of Scream 6?
So did we want to... I'm obviously very excited to talk about it and tell you what I thought. Did we want to do our rankings first and unveil...
Where Scream 6?
Yeah, in that form.
Sure.
Do you want to do lowest to highest?
No, let's just start at the top.
Okay.
I feel like the dumb reveal of and then our number one is
yeah, it's kind of played out. What's number one for you?
Scream.
Obvious.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
That's why I was like, there's no point in doing the countdown. The first one's the best.
Yeah, I would say there are many that are equal in entertainment in the franchise, but just by nature of being the first to set everything up, and it does what these movies try to do in the best undiluted form. So yeah, no brainer. Number one is Scream.
So then what's your 2?
Well, it's going to spoil what I think about this movie, but I said Scream 6 was number 2 for me.
Very popular opinion online. I'm going with Scream 5 as my number 2.
Cool.
I really liked where Gail and Sydney ended up.
Yeah.
In number 5. The loss of Dewey was tragic, but I felt like
it made sense in the movie, for sure.
It needed to happen, so...
Yeah, and they have the winking reference of them needing to add stakes to the movie, and I thought it was something that could have made him feel disposable, but it fit in the world of the movie.
Yes.
That they're viewing this as though they're, not real people to the killers, and to us, it was a big moment, and I think they pulled that off.
Okay.
But yeah, I had put number 6 at 2.
All right, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Scream number 3 in the ranking.
Scream 3.
Okay. I have Scream 4, and I really went back and forth on that one.
I thought you were a hater on Scream 4.
No, it was that I was a hater on Scream 3, and then when I saw it again, I liked it so much better, and I was like, I don't remember why I hated this so much.
Oh, yeah.
So I liked that Scream 4 was totally unrelated.
Yep.
It was nobody's relative, nobody's, you know what I mean?
It was her relative. It was her cousin.
Cousin. All right. Yeah, it was her cousin, but I don't know. It the motive for doing it had nothing to do with the sort of original murder. I don't know. I was like, we really needed something else, right?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely sat outside of those original 3 movies in a way that made it kind of like a reset almost.
Yeah.
Before the 5th one. And
I thought the meta criticism worked pretty well in Scream 4.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It was almost ahead of its time, oddly, when I think about when that movie came out in 2011.
It really was.
They've always kind of had that going for them.
Right.
When you look back.
Okay, so my 4 is Scream 3, which again, on rewatch, I realized, I liked it a lot more than I remembered liking it.
That was the one where I first started to kind of notice sequences within the movie being really planned and being pulled off really well, particularly in this one, the one where Sydney is on the set of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought that's among the most effective set pieces in the entire franchise. And
completely agree.
I thought it was cool that it had one killer. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Needed to happen.
The 2 Gales is also among the comedy highs of the franchise for sure. Her and Parker Posey being each other is hilarious.
Yep, agreed. Definitely that was part of it for me. I also really appreciated Sydney's like character growth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the movie handled like her kind of trying to get past it in 2, and then in 3 her sort of trying to hide from it, but like having sort of realized that this may be a persistent part of her life, and working towards like being more like self-defense, owning a gun. Like she just is a lot more prepared for it in the third one. And I was like, that was really nice to see. She was never your sort of, she always gave good fight, as final girl. But I really liked that about 3 when I rewatched it. Yeah,
great last shot too. That could have been the end of the series. Glad it's not. A number of movies I like came after it, but it could easily, like, it's one of the few really great final horror moments.
Yeah.
Was the door being opened. She's like, I don't care. And like a quick cut to black. Amazing.
Yeah. So bottom 2, 5 for me is Scream 2.
Also, same. I put that one, 5 for me, 4 was 2. 4 was...
I know.
I'm getting confused now. 4 was 2, 5 was 5.
Okay.
And that was just because I think that one's really good. I just thought all the other ones were better.
Yep.
For the reasons that we've gone into already.
So in last place, that leaves me with Scream 6.
Really? I went with 4. I can't say I'm surprised at that opinion. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Did you not like it at all?
You're going to have 45 minutes to talk me out of it, I guess. I hated it.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. It won't be not at all, but it will be almost entirely dislike.
Oh, okay. Well,
and you can guess why. Or can you guess why?
I know you're not a big fan of the Sam character. I feel like that was a complaint that you had about the 5th movie.
Yeah, so, all right, digging in, now that we have our rankings, there's so much to hate about this movie. But yes, at the center of it is that Sam and Tara are not worthy inheritors of Gail and Sydney, in my opinion.
Oh, agree to disagree. I don't think... I think that you're right in a way, but I think that there was enough going on that the movie itself kept moving forward. And stopping to think about it afterwards, I did really enjoy their dynamic. I did think it worked. I think... Let me guess, you hated that Neve Campbell wasn't in it, obviously.
No, I thought that was fine. I thought it was okay. It was good to retire. Here's the issue I have, and I think I am stealing this from the great YouTube channel CinemaSins, I believe, who made this sort of epic, viral, like 2-hour video on why the Star Wars prequels sucked.
Oh yeah,
we've all seen it. And one of the things that they say in that movie is they're like, no one in the new ones has any personality. And they're like, if I ask you to describe what Han Solo's like a whole lot of adjectives come to mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that, you have one person who's kind of like not afraid of what's happened and wants to kind of move on with life. And then the other person clearly hasn't done that and is grappling with, her own demons in terms of like who the father is. I like that aspect of it a lot.
It only shows up in a couple places. Like, I didn't think that really worked. I thought if they had explored it more, it would have been better. But I'm like, if I had to describe what either Sam or Tara were like, I would just be like, I don't really have any words. They're blanks. And then the twins.
You don't like
Yikes.
That? I like them.
Oh, gosh. I mean, in the year of our Lord of 2023, being gay is not a personality. Where they have no personality. The one dude is a complete blank. Like, I felt like the only person I cared about at all in this movie was Gail. And I was, like, screaming the whole time Gail had her big fight scene, because I was
Yeah,
like,
she
they
was
killed
great.
Gail Weathers, I'm going to be so PO'd.
And the jury's kind of out on that. Like, I think she is, like, at large by the end of the movie, but don't...
She's
they
alive.
didn't really confirm it.
Yeah, they did.
Did they? Because
Yeah.
the aside of that he just had to make sure was, I believe, where they left that.
But I would say, basically, my entire opinion of this movie can be summed up in, there's 3 big complaints. The first and foremost is everybody in this movie, with the exception of Gail Weathers, was too dumb to live. All of them. That was so annoying, I could not get past it. Like, the professor who walks into the alley, you're like, why? Why am I watching
these
this?
movies are full of people that do that stuff, though. That's, a trope unto itself in this world.
Right. But, like, they're all sitting in their apartment.
And then they don't live.
Yeah.
They just...
But then some of them live. They're in their apartment. They know a serial killer's on the loose, targeting them. They have 0 weapons.
Well, they took the weapons out.
No.
Clandestine.
What happened to the taser that they used to... She tases someone at a party. That taser never appears again. And I'm like... I just don't... Like, they were never armed or prepared at any moment in this movie, despite the fact that they were being targeted. And I was like, this is really annoying.
Yeah, they didn't like that.
Yeah. In contrast to, like, when Gail's attacked in her apartment, you can immediately see the wheels are turning in her head, right?
Well, she's been through it so many times before. These people are
But they
noobs.
were twice. This is their second time.
Yeah.
That's kind of BS.
I feel like it took a while for the other characters to kind of, like, cotton on to what they needed to do.
Yeah.
Pun intended for my cotton-weary fans.
Yes. But, like, like, you can see she starts plotting how she's going to get to her gun. And you're like, yes. Because
She still did stupid stuff. Like, one thing I couldn't stand about that is, like, the shooting through the door trope really annoys me in movies. All right, so to tell you why none of this mattered to me was, and I thought that the actors were charismatic enough that I kind of just liked, their banter was fine, filling in between some of the most amazing set pieces that the franchise has ever had, in my opinion. I think that the location change just did so much to kind of revitalize, like, just like the look and the things they did were great. I thought the look of, like, the alpha ghost face was great. And enough of that is happening at all times that it slows down very briefly that I just didn't really focus on that kind of thing,
Well, I had a lot to focus on, because complaint number 2 is I had it figured out pretty early on, which is a first for me with the Scream movies. So I was bored, because I was like, oh, it's the daughter and the cop. It's always the cop.
And then they had...
just like the butler always did it, the cop always did it. Like, it was definitely the cop.
Except Dempsey. They try to, like, make him look like he did.
Yeah. So that... Then it was like, all of these, like, dumb plot holes just kept coming up all the time, and it was, like, really, really annoying. Like, the part where they're like, it's Kirby. And I'm like, Hayden Panettieri's, like, 5 feet tall. Like,
well,
it's not remotely... It's not remotely plausible that you would have mistaken somebody 6 feet tall for Hayden. Like, that's not a believable lie. Like, immediately you'd be like, no, it can't possibly be her.
They got partners, they got lifts, there's all kinds of stuff you can do.
Come on. That's just ridiculous. I was like, that was ridiculous. I think the biggest part where I was just like, I quit this movie was when they were all sitting around watching the news.
Refresh my memory.
So they're sitting in the apartment when they're like, oh my god, there's a ghost face killer out, and they're just like all sitting watching the news. And I'm like, I'm Gen X and I don't watch the news. I barely can watch the news. You're telling me a bunch of Gen Z teenagers,
they're like,
something would happen when they would turn on the TV and watch the news? Like, that's so ludicrous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, you just go to your phone. Like, that would never happen. This is just, like, convention for convention's sake. Like, I was just like, you guys have lost the plot on this. I just thought I couldn't.
I kind of didn't mind that, now that you say it. I think it's kind of funny.
So dumb. I just hated it. And I think, like, so there was, like, they're all too dumb to live, and that was annoying. I think the bigger criticism I have for this being Scream is that this movie had nothing to say about horror movies or its meta criticism just didn't work at all for me. There really wasn't one. They didn't have anything to say. They retread what like franchises were. I didn't think that was particularly insightful.
Yeah, I think that was definitely secondary in this one, and that brings up just an interesting kind of point in general I wanted to just throw out there about these movies and about what they're like continuing to do is talk about the movies in a way that you think about like Babylon, the movie we just did, where this is like a movie about the movies.
Right.
And is way worse to me than any of these movies because I do think in this one that it was not as much of a factor. It was more like the revenge motivation was primary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just thought that's what made the first one so fun, was that it was explaining the tropes, inverting and subverting some of them and letting others go. And I was like, this one just didn't really know what it was trying to be. They tried to have a social media angle that didn't come off, and it was too close of a retread to the previous one. I just like it's run out of commentary, and I thought there is a lot of commentary you can make on like the whole woke horror genre. Like there were things you could have said about what's going on with modern horror, and they seemed at a loss to say anything. And I thought that's kind of sad. Like I think to me, like what's made the series fun has definitely been, again, the growth of Sydney and Gail, and it was fine that Sydney wasn't there, like, sure, but I don't think they left the franchise in capable hands, frankly. And the sort of criticism about, like, where does a slasher movie fit in the modern day? Like, what do we think about that stuff? And I was like, this movie just didn't know what to say about it. Having said that, I liked Gail's fight sequence. I liked the bodega one. I thought was really good. There is like I didn't hate all of it.
Yeah.
The third act was just really long, and that monologue went on forever.
I liked when they brought in the two costumes for the first time. I thought was really cool in the sort of like converted theater shrine area where you actually have two people in costumes on the screen. Mm-hmm. Running around and doing like the coordinated movements I thought looked super cool. I will admit, like I did find like the reveal, I think credit to, I'm going to get the guy's name right. Dermot Mulroney is in this movie, right? Not yes. Dylan McDermott
it's so
and
hard.
Not Dugary Scott. It's like three guys are the same to me. He and the two kids I thought were good as well. That were, his children who were in on it. The reveal itself, I didn't see it coming or not. I was too wrapped up in kind of like the highs of the movie. And I'm one of those people, I don't really have a ton of fun trying to figure it out beforehand. It's just like kind of not fun to me. Yeah. And like you said, you like kind of guessed on accident. Like I don't know how much you were like looking for it when you watched it, but
I mean,
just like revealed itself to you in an obvious fashion. But like that to me is like not fun. You know what I mean? Like it's fun to be shown.
I can almost categorically say there's no coming back from that for me, unfortunately. In that, same with like
when you figure
with the Death on the Nile, I'm like, this is now really boring because I'm gonna wonder.
Exactly.
Like it just kills the whole movie. Unfortunately, like it is neither here nor there sometimes, and it's not always the fault of a movie. But once I figure it out too early, the rest just becomes somewhat tedious. It's very difficult to make it stay interesting.
So circling back, I was not nuts about the plot mechanics about the reveal. I do think that Dermot Mulroney being unhinged as a performance, I really liked. I thought he was clearly having a lot of fun with it. Mm-hmm. It was very funny. And it, I think, kind of kept that tradition of sort of like the villains, the whole movie, they're not acting unhinged until they reveal themselves. And just kind of how much of a sort of balancing act these characters are doing to not reveal themselves is always a lot of fun because they always get a lot of time to be themselves, like the crazy side of themselves.
Yeah, so that's another like weird nitpick, and I am not going to discuss this in any way, shape, or form about Courtney Cox or formerly when Neve Campbell was still in it, but two of the lead actresses, Hayden Panettiere and the girl who played the roommate Quinn, were both Botoxed all to heck. And I'm like, it's very hard to give a good acting performance when 3/4 of your face doesn't move. And I'm like, they're young.
Yeah. I'm looking it up. I was like, because I thought Hayden, I was like, she's like a little older than me. That's what I was thinking in the movie theater. Not true.
Nope. She's younger than you.
She's 34.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah. And I'm just like... Again, I'm not here to shame any woman about the difficulties of aging in Hollywood, but they're like not aging, and I'm like, this is so. I'm like, you're ruining your craft.
Yeah, it was like tough to like watch.
Yeah, it was, and I was like, I understood why Hayden Panettiere came back. I thought Kirby was a fun character.
She was great,
but I was like, she would have been a lot better if like she could have moved her forehead.
Yeah, and the both of them, I think. Again, I'm not trying to open this whole can of worms, but both of them have been acting since they were quite young.
Yeah.
So I think that might also have something to do with it.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave the older woman. I'm not gonna step into that pot, but I do think it's really sad from a younger woman perspective, and I do think like it hurts your craft.
Yeah, for sure.
You're working against yourself.
Yeah, it's distracting.
Yeah.
In a way that
So yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the performances. I liked the opening. I liked the opening piece. I was like, oh, it's our first like person of color. Ghostface. Yeah. Rock on.
I didn't want him to be in the whole movie.
No, I was glad.
Like, if I watch this whole movie, nothing drives me crazier than an extended period of knowing something that the characters in the movie don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, they need to get rid of him. And they did.
Okay.
But it was really cool.
Yeah.
I thought that whole opening sequence was great.
Yeah, other than, like, her just being completely stupid, which is just very annoying. It's very annoying. Very annoying. But she didn't live. I mean, it's much more annoying when you're too dumb to live and then you live. Then I get really mad.
Rewarded anyway.
There was a fair amount of yucky love stuff, which I was like, why? Nobody needed or wanted.
I didn't mind it.
Okay. I was like, he's such a like blank slate. So those are kind of like my big. Oh, and there was like an awkward song change in the middle of one scene, and I was like, who did the soundtrack for this? Like one song was playing, and they not at all seamlessly transitioned to a different song. I thought overall the soundtrack was pretty terrible. I thought the music choices were pretty.
They were more fun in the previous movie.
It felt like they couldn't afford to buy the rights to anything good.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
The score, as always, I thought was quite good.
The score is fine. I'll give you that.
Also, they did a heck of a job making that look like New York.
Oh, Canada?
Yeah. I thought, I mean, obviously they had a lot of exteriors. I thought they made it look quite menacing. It made me think how, I'm just now noticing this after, I guess 3 was in LA. But most of the movies are in this small town, and it's really cool that they are. I would be happy if the next one, they're like, we're going back here. For some reason, we're going back to Woodsboro. Yeah,
I mean, I give them credit for sort of being like, we need a big change. Like, we need this to really, if we're going to do this and we're not going to have Gail and Sydney and Dewey anymore, then we really have to reestablish this in a different spot with different people. Like, yeah. I know that was the intent. And so it just didn't land for you, basically. I didn't care if any of the quote-unquote core 4 lived or died. I was rooting for Gail and Gail alone. I was sitting in the theater being like, I really like this, and I'm sure, I don't know when you saw it. We saw it the Thursday before it opened. Like, that's like the thing now. It used to be like a midnight deal, and now it's just like a day early. I was definitely thinking that you were somewhere hating that. Yep. And I'm not wrong, No, and I'm in the minority. Yeah. When I looked up everybody else's rankings, a vast majority of rankings had this as number 2. People really liked the new actresses. I'm the only one. I don't think that it was the actress's fault. I think they were
material.
They're not really given much characterization, and I think they didn't want to repeat Gale and Sydney. Fine, but like they're just kind of non-entities. They're just blank. They have not a lot of personality. Whereas Gale has like a lot, right?
I would say the one thing that I did think was curious was not talk like they. This is stuff. So what you're, I was into the new characters. I'm gonna just put that out there. I did not mind them, but you're right in that these are the complaints you have are ones that are very easily solved. So like, take a look at Scream 2. The movie that this is clearly trying to be is that one in terms of kind of like redoing it, but with a twist.
Right.
They're at college, etc. So when we watch Scream 2, we get Sydney is dating a jock.
Right.
The sorority wants her to pledge for it, and she is a theater, if not a theater major, she is acting in, she's Cassandra in that play. That took no time to establish. They could have given these kids majors.
Right.
And that, I agree with, like, it's kind of like why one line would have taken care of some of this stuff, And that goes a long way to being like, oh, they like econ.
Right.
She wants to work on Wall Street.
Right.
That's where the money is. She takes an econ class. That's an easy fix. And I do think it seems kind of like, and I'm going to be honest that I do think my rankings have a little bit of recency bias. I was just so, the adrenaline was pumping afterwards. I do think that it was just so propulsive. And I did spend a lot of time, my friend Chris, who introduced me to these movies in college, he had just seen it the day later, and we were talking about it, and he really liked it. And it didn't ever fall apart for me, which I like. But I do think that my high ranking is because I just saw it. However, we did watch the other 5 days before seeing this. So I don't know how true that is. We'll see when I watch it again.
Right. So this is my perspective, open to yours, on why I've watched Scream again since the beginning. Scream really sort of took on, in a very thoughtful way, the whole idea of the final girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mixed in with the final girl, everything that was going on with sort of 90s feminism at the time. Like, Gale's character is like, she's this sort of rebuke to the 90s feminism. She's the childless, career-driven woman who's like nasty and horrible to other women.
Yeah, it's like slitting throats to get ahead, figuratively.
Yes. And she's your sort of like feminist nag, worst story come true, right? That everyone was afraid of in the 90s, right? And
this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. This is how you're going to end up, little girls.
Do you want to be like this?
You're right. And then you have Sydney, who's sort of pretty and popular and has the like hunk boyfriend and everything kind of going for her. And she is often fighting against, like the having to be a virgin. Right.
And the stuff with her mother, I think, is like there's that one scene where she's in the bathroom in the first movie, and the other 2 girls are talking about her mom.
Right.
And being a subject of gossip for that reason as well.
Yeah. And so, like, as you've watched, and again, I think that's part of why, and you predicted that I was going to love 5 so much, like, 5 really understood at the heart of this movie this entire time has been Gale and Sydney. Dewey there to support them, but like their relationship and they're dealing with this repeated trauma and having to come back into each other's lives when they don't particularly like each other, but they're like bound by this thing, is really what the whole thing kind of, I just felt like it finally was like, yeah, right, this is what we've been doing this whole time. And like, as they have aged and as they have changed their attitude towards, repeatedly being thrown into serial killer land, like, you sort of kind of grown up with them, and you've sort of seen, again, like, what's today's take the quote-unquote final girl model, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what this final one, really had to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. When I think back on it, it is mostly just buzzing from propulsive set pieces, and anything you would glean like that does seem kind of incidental. Or maybe not explored as much as it could be, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess I just felt like, I guess that's part of why I didn't miss Sydney so much. I was like, Gale has always been the most interesting character in this whole thing the whole time. Because she is hateable. And she's never not hateable,
but
right?
I feel like you kind of see yourself in Gale. Like the aspects that you might not quite like. But know in your heart that you might do things like Gale does things. Like, we all have the potential to be Gale.
Okay, I guess my take on it is that ultimately, Gale is unapologetically herself, right? She is who she is. She knows who she is, and she doesn't apologize for it. She shows up in the world as she is. She has a lot of less than nice qualities, right? Like, she promised she wasn't going to write a book, and then she totally wrote the book, right? Like, who believed her that she wouldn't? But I mean, again, it's like when push comes to shove and there's a serial killer in the loose, like, Gale there for you, man, every time.
Yep.
Like, Gale is there.
Oh, yeah.
She has your back. And I think the movie wanted, they start out with the lens on Sydney, but ultimately, like, I've made my peace, but, like, there was nowhere more for her character to go. Like, I think it was time for her to retire, and I think this is a good point to retire Gale.
Get, like maybe 20, 30 years of life not getting chased around. Another thing, just since we're talking about the world, the third movie to me is the only one. Obviously, these have a lot of jump scares. They're scary. That one, I think, had the scariest parts of the movie with her mother, the ghost. Like, when she's on the set and the body bag starts moving around. It's the only one where there's sort of, like, the kind of horror that I find scary, and I do watch a lot of horror movies, is one that's, like, not a pop-out. It's a static shot of something that you're seeing, but you don't, like, believe that you're seeing it. And, like, or just, like, when she's the ghost, like, the window is open and she's all pointing. That actress that I guess they had in all, like, the first three movies in the photos and then later as the ghost was great. Yeah. She was scary looking. At no point did she look like anything other than, like, kind of like a witch or a seductress, like she, I guess, was. By the way, it's a little ironic that the third movie's big thing is, like, these producers are terrible people, and it's produced by the Weinsteins. Yeah. Like, deflect much? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled nonsense? Yeah. Like, okay. But that was even a little ahead of its time, too. It's like, I feel like it wasn't talked about as much. Absolutely. Back then, 1999 or 2000 when that one came out.
I think it's really hard to raise the bar. I mean, I do think in the first one, having it be two of them, I remember just feeling what a legitimate shock that was.
In the first movie.
Yeah, in the very first movie, I was like, I'm so surprised right now. Like, I really just didn't see that coming at all. And I remember thinking, like, oh, it was cool. But, I do think if they are going to make a Scream 7 that they have got to figure out something more about Sam and Tara. Like, they just have to have more going on in their lives than this thing. Or, like I said, I mean, all the scenes with her, when she had that bit talking to her therapist, I was like, play up the dark side. Like, that was really interesting and cool. And I thought, it doesn't have to go lurching from action scene to action scene. Like, you can do a little bit of this
I
stuff.
do like the bit where they're, like, the truthers about, the fuck is the guy? The boyfriend from the last movie. Oh, like Richie? Richie being innocent, and that it was a frame job. I thought that was really funny. Like, that amused me a lot.
Again, they were trying to say something. It just didn't come off this time. So I will say, like, the other thing that I someone pointed out who I watched this movie with, was that the irony of this whole thing was like the criticism that they needed to make about the franchise model was like how badly that the Marvel franchise is doing now, because nobody likes the new Marvel people. And like he was like, they unwittingly made that very criticism in this movie by having the people taking over just like not having the same drive.
That is a downfall that I am really curious to see play out.
But I think both Scream and Disney, well, I'm going to throw this out there. I think they've sort of made the same mistake, which is that they invested in characterization and all the tentpole actors early on, and they didn't make the same investment later. They just kind of showed up, and they were kind of stock characters, and they thought, oh, well, you'll just like them because they're Captain Marvel or because they're whomever, and it's like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to actually get us to like this person based on them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this comes down to, like, I didn't mind any of these people. I thought they were good. I like them.
Yeah, again, I'm somewhat of a minority on this one. I'm looking at the record. Maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to stick with if it's Sam and Tara. Like, I'm not so interested in watching what comes next for them.
So you would be out. We're not going to do movies that matter for Scream 7.
Oh, no. I think there's only, because, you know, it's really hard to do sequels. There's only, like, one of these we could do anyway.
Yeah.
So this was going to be the one. But we needed to do it because it so turns out that, like, we're all big fans. And again, and I think the retrospective is interesting. I think when we, you know, when you kind of look back, and I think Scream had a lot to say. Like, it started out having a lot to say about, like, women's roles in horror films and in society.
Just, like, the stuff that the movies say unintentionally is also crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of, like, going back on the first few, this sort of, like, obsession we now all have with true crime is addressed in these movies, not intentionally, because it wasn't as much of a thing then. But it was more of, like, it was around, and I think they talk about stuff like that, you know, like who... Like, in the world of the movie, these are sort of, like, real people that are getting killed. And the way people who are peripheral to the events or not there at all, like, kind of, like, don't see that is a really cool thing.
No, like, now that you're saying it, and in fact, and it's incredibly prescient. Like, basically, Gail's made her whole career off of true crime.
And she's, like, kind of, like, seen as this sort of, you know, fringy, muckraking character. Now it's, like... People do that all the time now.
Right.
It's like a whole thing. And it's, you know, it is what it is, but it is, I don't know.
No, that's an incredible point. Like, I never really thought about that before. Yeah, she's been vilified this entire time.
Yeah. And now it's like, you know, you could be a success.
Well, she's been
but a respected success, I guess, is what I mean. Like, you will get more than money. You will get
acclaim.
You will be respected by your peers.
Right.
For being in this genre.
Man, I never really thought about it that way. Yeah. And it is sort of purely by accident.
Yeah, I don't think it's on purpose at all. They are looking at it
from a very old school perspective.
And that's what's cool about these movies is they keep sort of being timeless. You know, if you watch the first one, you know, 1997, not recent. It does not feel dated, really, at all. I don't know. I feel like these movies kind of like stay with you. You know, like they stay relevant.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because we've talked about, you know, the very sort of quote unquote like high art horror films, like the ones that are really trying to say something hard. And Scream is trying to say something, for sure. Always has been, but it's like pretty niche and it's not trying to make a giant commentary about society. It's just kind of making commentary about horror films, but it's self-reflective on itself as a tentpole like sort of horror film, right? Like, so it contends with the legacy of quote unquote stab, right?
Yeah.
Within the Scream.
Yeah, because the fourth movie starts, I think it's like the first three things are stabbed fake
Oh,
outs.
yeah, so great.
Which is hilarious.
I know, which is where I was like, oh, God, that is... After Drew Barrymore, that is the best opening.
Yeah, I like the newest one a lot, but I do think that 4 is probably the best one after that.
Yeah, I guess I was like, why do I have such an attachment to Scream? Like, it seems so out of character for me. And there's definitely a nostalgia play, but I think that it has been a franchise like that was good about commenting on the times it was in for most of its run. I think it didn't know what to say. And I actually I wonder how much the pandemic influences that.
Yeah, it's
like,
we're just out in the world again.
Yeah, and we don't know really what to think about it. I don't think anybody really knows what to think about it yet.
Yeah. It's also, one of the things I hate the most in any movie is meta. Like, it's like possibly the laziest form of art, and these just nail it. So, like, it's the perfect combination of tongue-in-cheek and serious.
Right. Right.
Like, where the movies, particularly, that's why I like the third one so much, is you kind of see these, like, the movie getting made is such a big plot point. Clearly they're taking that seriously, but then you have, like, Jamie Kennedy's throwaway lines, like, it's like, oh, why are you complaining? You were played by David Schwimmer. It's like, that's stupid, but it's really funny, and it's like such low-hanging fruit, but at the same time, they are taking themselves seriously at the same time. Like, they're not, it's you're supposed to sort of be like, they're laughing with it. They're not laughing at any of the stuff they're kind of like commenting on.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, again, they're trying to stay in their lane, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not trying... Yes, they are somewhat making a comment about the larger, again, feminism in the world, but more or less they were just taking on the trope of the final girl, right? They are staying... They know they're, sort of B-movie. They're not trying to be more than they are. And I think often that's why the critique lands so much, is because it's like, we're trying to make a very narrow point. One what we feel qualified to make.
Yep. And entertaining you while we're doing it as well.
Right.
Making it feel like a living, breathing thing and not a delivery system for, whatever.
Right. And I think there's like a lot to be said. Like I did, we did Megan, and I did like Megan, but it was a little like heavy handed with the point it was trying to make. Okay. So I feel like, again, I don't want to like pluck 6 out of itself. So I'm going to give a social impact score for all of Scream. Just Scream.
10.
Yeah, I mean, 8 or 9 for me.
Yeah, there's a reason this has been we've been doing this for 30 years almost at this point. That's a really long time. It's not a glut of content either. It's not something where there's 14 of these things. There's not a lot. And they've kind of always popped up when you needed a Scream movie in your life. Just when you thought you didn't need one comes along. Particularly like in the 4 on era, I guess. Yeah, they're just kind of there when you need it.
Yeah, and they do what they do, and they do it well. Like, they know what they're doing. This particular one was not great for me, but like overall, again, I've been watching them this whole time for the most part. I've just always been a fan. For someone who doesn't like horror or slasher films, like, Scream has been the one that has stuck with me this entire time. Which,
as always, I like to say, like, that's what like almost speaks to the power of these movies, is that somebody that does not care for the genre it's commenting on and is a part of, but still likes them.
Yep. All right, recommendations?
I've thought about this for a while. I'm going to use any platform I have to recommend True Detective, particular season 2, which everyone hated, and I look forward to one day being vindicated with a bunch of think pieces about how it wasn't as bad as we remember. And then I'll throw some books out there. There's a mystery writer, Jane Harper, wrote a book called The Dry, which is incredible. Read it.
Yeah, so I am going to make a plug for, I feel like everyone's sleeping on this, but look, you all just signed back up for Apple TV to watch Ted Lasso. I know that that's true. So I'm recommending Mythic Quest by the creators of Community and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's an incredible show about a group of great game developers. No yucky love stuff, which I love. And it's just really good. It has a lot of heart. It's very funny, but it's not dark. Like, when you need something to watch and you want to feel okay about stuff, like, that's your show. Because there are very few of them, so I'm throwing that one out there. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, buy a t-shirt. You can check out our store on moviesthatmatterpodcast.com. Hit us up on Facebook. Leave a comment on YouTube. And remember, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.